What is up, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast. I am Cole Latchaw. Coach Pat's busy yelling at a bunch of teenagers for not boxing out. So joining me again is brother Sean. Sean, we just watched St. John's beat Butler 70-62. Game was a lot closer than that 8-point win says. These two teams played one of the worst first halves of basketball I have ever seen in my entire life. St. John shot 30% from the field in that half, 1 for 10 from three-point before ending the game, 1 for 21 from three-point. I don't even know how that's possible. 7 turnovers, 6 assists in that first half. Butler, meanwhile, shot 33% from the field, 2 for 9 from three-point. After starting the game, 1 for 15, 3 for 11 from the free throw line, with 9 turnovers and 5 assists. Literally might have set the game back 100 years. Then, like I said, St. John's ultimately turns it around, ends the game plus 12 in the second half, turning the score into an 8-point win. Led a lot by Zuby Ejiofor, who had all 14 of his points in the second half. RJ Lewis with another great game, 20 points. Davon Smith, stat sheet stuffing, as always, along with Kadari Richmond. Sean, what did you see?
Yeah, so definitely liked what we saw from Kadari there, particularly at the end of the game. He kind of took over there and helped us dodge the bullet of essentially the loss that could have been today. Shooting 4.8% from three, probably less than ideal. I know Coach Patino just had the article with Braziller where he was talking about he wants the kids to let it fly. They certainly did. They shot the ball in rhythm. They had open looks, just couldn't get them to fall. This has been kind of a reoccurring theme. Hopefully they can kind of start to get it together. I know we have been, my understanding is that Jaden Glover might be a little dinged up. I don't know. I didn't see that, but I think that just kind of came out now. So I don't know. You hope. I don't think that's conducive to winning in the long term. I don't think that's sustainable to shoot like that. Like I said, like what you saw from Kadari, particularly down the stretch there. Davon had getting out on the break with some of those assists. I know that pass to Zuby was pretty incredible. And RJ doing RJ stuff. Dodged a bullet.
Yeah, is wanting the kids to let it fly, this specific team, is that a good idea or a bad idea? I don't know. They've shown us that they're not really capable of shooting well from three-point literally for the entire year. To your point, I don't think it's not conducive for long-term winning with this team, but I think they're talented enough to still be able to overcome shooting woes and beat superior or less superior teams. Talent-wise, just because of how much talent is on this roster. We've seen that obviously in the Providence road game where they're able to overcome bad shooting. Saw the same thing again today with Butler. Saw the same thing despite not getting the win, but able to hang tough with Creighton. To your point with Kadari, 11 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I thought he had a 4-minute stretch there with about 8 to play where he really just completely took over the game, whether it was rebounding on the defensive end, getting steals, had a few just that style of play, that slow-mo bully ball, taking the ball to the rim, got a few good buckets. You mentioned RJ doing RJ things. We've come to just expect this from him with putting up a bunch of points. I was really impressed with his 11 defensive rebounds. Shot 9 of 19 from the field. He's a volume shooter. I think he was 0 for 3 or 0 for 5 from three-point. Again, Rick said he liked a lot of the looks that the team had. Obviously, shooting 1 for 21 is atrocious, but he thought they were all good looks, open looks, so he didn't seem mad with the three-point shots that they were taking, and RJ had a lot of open looks himself that just didn't fall from three. Rick Pitino said in his post-game press conference about RJ, he took over this game, but he needs to do that from the starting tip. Also, I mentioned previously, Davon stuffing the stat sheet, 13 points, 6 boards, 4 assists. He was plus 16 plus minus, which led the entire team outside of Aaron Scott. Aaron Scott led the team in plus minus with plus 20, but I thought played well at the defensive end, as he always does. But I thought his offensive game really hurt us today, and it really, at different points, him struggling offensively takes away so much because he does space the floor when he's shooting well from three-point. He has really struggled over the last 4 games. Obviously, it's good that we're 3-1 over those 4 games, but especially playing Big East competition, I don't know how long we can continue to have him struggle offensively. Only 4 points today, 0 for 1 from 3-point. Against Creighton, only 3 points, 1 of 6 from 3. Against Delaware, obviously a game the rest of the team did well, and the rest of the team shot really well from 3. But against Delaware, 3 points, 1 of 4 from 3. And against Providence, only 3 points, 1 of 7 from 3. So when you really need Aaron Scott to get turned around, I think at times he kind of looks lost offensively. Obviously, he's a real 3-and-D guy. He's on perimeter a lot, looking to make 3-pointers. What do you think about Aaron and how he affects this offense, and how, when we have looked poor, especially in this first 3-game stretch to start Big East play, I think it really turns around a lot with this team when he's playing well and he's shooting threes in rhythm and making them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want him to be one of the guys that kind of helps to stretch the defense. So one of our few kind of real bright spots offensively has been the play of Zuby down low. You're hoping that teams don't start to kind of slouch off of your shooters, kind of gumming up the works offensively, and the ability to work through the post. Shooting 1 for 21, as we made abundantly clear, is not sustainable. But it is interesting that you can overcome. I mean, look, St. John, we won by 8, right? I mean, I know it was closer than that score indicates, but you were what, 3.5 points away from covering the spread, and you shot 1 for 21 from 3. I don't know if that's a good, I don't know if they'll look at that positively. But yeah, I think, inherently you really do have to worry about teams starting to focus on playing defense down low, as opposed to kind of stretching with the shooters. I don't know what's going on with Aaron particularly. Him and Wilcher, I really think, kind of have nice strokes and shoot it with confidence, and it's just not falling. It's not working right now. So hopefully that can kind of get it together. Obviously, you love what he gives defensively. It's fascinating that he had that kind of plus minus while struggling offensively. But hopefully we can get guys to start stretching the floor a little bit. And obviously Rick is in the mode of trying to support these guys in their shooting endeavors.
So obviously we've talked about the 3-point shooting. Also, when you shoot 4-point whatever from 3-point, that's also going to drag down the total field goal percentage. But I mean, only shooting 36% from the field is certainly worrisome. And this has been going on now for multiple games. To what I had said earlier and to what you just talked about, obviously, I think this team is just so talented, and they have the ability to win games in other ways, even when shots aren't falling, by playing stellar defense, by getting scoring out in transition. To that point, 14 steals today as a team. I think foul trouble was something that really hurt us a lot in that first half. You had 4 of your 5 starters with 2 fouls. Also, you had Sim being the first man off the bench, picking up 2 fouls in that first half. And we know how Rick Pitino handles foul trouble. Once you get that second foul, you're sitting on the bench for the rest of the half. So I think then that led us to seeing a lot of minutes for Deco Ayo, Lefteris Leotopoulos, which with meaningful minutes for the first time, I think, in his St. John's career. I don't think I had ever seen him get playing time outside of end of the game garbage time, which is all kind of just a result of this foul trouble. I think it's going to be a necessity for Zuby to stay out of foul trouble. I think we lose a lot when he has to come off the court, when we have to go to either Vinci Wachuku or Ruben Prey, who have both shown flashes of being solid Big East players, but I don't think that we lose so much when Zuby comes off the floor. And like I mentioned, him scoring all 14 of his points in the second half, 8 rebounds, a plus 15 plus minus. I thought Zuby played great in that second half. Rick Pitino had a really, really interesting quote in his post-game interview. He said that talking about his players, they hear what you say, but they don't listen. Young people are different these days. I'm struggling with it. I'm not quitting like other coaches, but I'm struggling. I gave up drinking for New Year's, but after today, I think I might have the shortest resolution in the history of mankind. Rick is, I wish I could say I also gave up drinking, but I also need a beverage immediately after that game once we get done recording here. Sean, anything else that jumped out to you with today's game that you want to hit on?
Yeah. So it's back to your point about the foul trouble. I think we kind of benefited from some swallow whistle. The refereeing seemed to be a little bit up and down, but they let the kids be aggressive, which I always appreciate. There was a no call there at the end where I think one of our former guys, Kobe King, got annihilated on the sideline. But anyway, I do like that the kids stayed aggressive. The boys, it seemed like even with the foul trouble, still were able to turn the ball over. Depending on how you look at it, maybe getting a little handsy on some of the drives, but we pulled it out and kind of we're able to really what is our best offensive set right now, ironically, which is getting out in transition. And I know they mentioned on the broadcast also offensive rebounding is like our best offensive possession.
Zuby, yeah.
But yeah, so I did appreciate the fellows' aggressiveness defensively, even with the foul trouble. So obviously some stuff to clean up. Got to get some shots to start falling, but like you said, the defense can just be so overwhelming at times for these other teams, and you saw that even with the press during stretches today. Where they had to use a bunch of timeouts there on the baseline, and they couldn't get the ball in at points. But
had to use two timeouts real early in the second half, where the press wasn't letting them inbound the ball.
Yeah. I had a question for you. Did you hear? Did you see anything or hear anything about RJ getting dinged up a little bit? They had mentioned on the broadcast that he was gimping around a little bit.
There were two different points. At one point, a layup on the offensive end, he went down and kind of looked a little gimpy getting back up. And then another point on the defensive end, it looked like he rolled his ankle a little bit. And that was when they specifically mentioned him limping around, was after a rolled ankle. But hopefully neither is too serious. I didn't see anything post-game, any quotes or anything like that about him being banged up.
Yeah, obviously with his injury history too, you get to kind of walk on eggshells a little bit. But I was just curious. I didn't notice anything.
So I think the Butler game is one of those, like, take the game tape, light it on fire, put it in the bagster, and move on. So thank God we walk out of there with a win. So without positive Pat here to bring it down, instead me and the other Latchall boy are super pessimists. Let's talk about St. John's resume and start looking ahead to getting into the March Madness tournament. They currently sit at 12-3. Q1 games were 0-3. Q2 games were 2-0. Q3 games 4-0. Q4 games 6-0. As it stands right now, St. John's has 6 quad 1 opportunities remaining in Big East play. I think, Sean, you and I have talked about this before, that in my opinion, prior to the Big East tournament, your magic number is 23. I think if you can get to 23 wins, then regardless of how you perform the Big East tournament, even you come out day one and lose, I think you're okay and feel comfortable going into Selection Sunday. Looking at their schedule, I think there's a very clear path to get to those 11 more wins to get you to that 23 number. Now, that's going to require obviously taking care of business against the bottom teams, the Butlers, the DePauls, the Seton Halls, the Georgetowns. I think that, obviously should be favored in every one of those games. I think that's doable. I think obviously getting to those 11 wins is going to require sweeps against some of Villanova, Xavier. That might be asking a lot. Just how our schedule is structured, getting to that 11 wins will probably mean winning the vast majority, if not all, of your games in January before the competition really picks up in February and you see most of those quad 1 games, remaining opportunities happening. Is that too much to ask to go on some crazy one in January? I don't know. Sean, where are you sitting on the pessimist positivity St. John's March Madness resume levels?
Yeah, with the out of conference schedule and kind of how we lost those games, there's a plus and there's a negative to it, right? The plus side of those games is don't necessarily have a bad loss, but we did lose to the 3 best teams that we've played by most metrics. So where are your good wins, I think, is something that you have to start worrying about. Unfortunately, we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner where it looks like we might, in order to get those kind of resume building good wins, and, you talk about Q1 opportunities and everything like that, they're probably going to have to win some games that they probably shouldn't be in the business of winning. But hopefully you get to that magic number so you're not sweating it out come Selection Sunday, and you're not worried about blind resume watching and all of this stuff. But I am certainly worried about our Q1 resume. But like you said, we had spoke off air about last year kind of having some bad losses to BC and teams like that. You're not seeing that yet. And obviously those were really, really close games, but the idea is not to get down to that point where we're on the bubble. But they're gonna. I mean, and they're capable. They're capable of going on a run here a little bit. We've seen flashes of that, but we're definitely gonna have to get some balls bouncing our way a little bit.
Yeah, and you look at the resume as it currently stands and you compare it to last year. Now, obviously being left on the outside looking in was kind of a unique experience for what happened last year with all of the bid stealers. Obviously, that was abnormal, and the Big East really got the short end of the stick, and St. John's and Seton Hall specifically. But last year's resume, we had the 4 quad 1 wins, but to your point, a lot of bad losses. Out of conference, like you mentioned, BC and also Michigan were 2 really bad losses. We don't have that this year. So I throw out the number 23. I don't know how many quad 1 wins you would need if you get to that 23 number. I mean, hypothetically, you lose every game against Marquette and UConn, like you can still see a clear path to get those 11 more wins to get to that 23 magic number, and still should feel pretty confident. Now, that also, as I mentioned, that you're probably still going to have to win a road game against Nova if you lose those 4 other games, or road game against Xavier, so some of which might be fall into that quad 1. But I mean, you could be talking about realistically a 23 win team getting into March Madness with no real, like you said, real good resume building wins, which is very interesting. But you have been very lucky, or good enough to beat all the teams that you should beat to this point. You've won all the games that you absolutely have to. So kudos to the team thus far for not having any bad losses on that resume. And we cross our fingers and we hope we get wins the rest of the way that we need to, and that we're not sweating it out on Selection Sunday, because I'd love just not to have to worry about anything on Selection Sunday. Comfortably in, and then let Rick Pitino cook wherever seed we get, and we'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, listen, a lot of these bracketology things and scenarios and metrics and Ken Pom, that's for a lot of folks that are a lot smarter than I am. I don't know how the scenarios work out and all that. I'd be curious to know, historically, how many teams have comfortably been into the tournament without Q1 wins. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know, but you hope also there's folks there with just some basketball sense that have watched this team, and barring some poor performances, the close loss to Baylor and stuff like that, and you can see that this is a good basketball team. But I don't know anymore, with how automated all this stuff is anymore. I don't know if there's still basketball folks taking it for face value. I don't know.
And that's the one thing. I think at their best, St. John's certainly passes the eye test. And you hope this year the selection committee actually has some real good basketball minds. Last year's selection committee left a lot to be desired, but I think anybody with half a brain can look at that St. John's team playing at their best and be like, yeah, that's a tournament team. So that's what we hope for over the rest of the season. Again, St. John's sleepwalks their way through the majority of the game today against Butler, but gets a win by 8 points. Sean, appreciate you filling in for Pat. For Eugene Lawrence, I'm Cole Latchaw. That's Sean Latchaw. Catch you next time.
Gino!